Today, we're going to dive into a pretty controversial theory about gender dynamics that's been making the rounds online. It's called the AWFUL thesis. In this explainer, we're just going to unpack it, its main arguments, the analogies it uses, and the solutions it puts forward, all based on the source material where this whole thing started.
Right off the bat, the source material does not pull any punches. It opens with this super blunt, provocative statement. Now, this isn't just a throwaway line, It's really the hook that sets up the entire argument. The whole theory is basically an attempt to explain why it's making this claim about this very specific group of people.
So who exactly are we talking about here? The source actually coins an acronym for it, AWFUL. It stands for Affluent, White, Female, Urban, and Liberal. As we go through this, we'll be looking at the specific behaviors and motivations that the source claims are tied to this group.
Okay, so first things first, let's really get into the core argument of the AWFUL thesis. What is the central idea here? At its heart, the theory is really all about misdirected biological instincts. The argument basically goes that these innate maternal drives, the instinct to nurture and raise children, they don't just disappear if a woman doesn't have kids. The source argues they get rerouted, aimed at other targets entirely.
So what does this misdirection actually look like in the real world? Well, according to the source, it shows up in a few key ways. Things like treating men or complex political issues with this kind of maternal condescension, or scolding people online like they're naughty children. It also points to what it calls a denial of nature, and even uses this phrase, phantom pregnancy meltdowns, to describe what it sees as these big public displays of emotion that are looking for validation.
Now, to really explain the why behind all this, the source leans heavily on one central analogy. It's all about caged animals. Let's take a look at how this is used to build the case.
So the first example is a beaver born in captivity. It's never even seen a river, right? But its instinct to build a dam is so powerful that it'll grab anything it can find. The source even mentions a SpongeBob toy, to build a dam for a river that just isn't there. The drive has to come out, no matter what.
And it's the same idea with the next example, a caged bird that starts pulling out its own feathers. The argument is that a bird's beak evolved to peck at things, and if there's nothing else around to peck, it turns that instinct inward. Even if it hurts itself, the instinct finds an outlet, one way or another.
Okay, so this is where the source connects that analogy right back to its main point. The argument is that just like that beaver or that bird, the women in this specific group are driven to mother something. And if they don't have children, that powerful instinct allegedly gets aimed at men, social media, and political fights instead. So if misdirected instinct is the why, then what about the how? The source identifies a very specific communication style it calls baby talk as the main way this all plays out in conversations. Now, when the source says baby talk, it doesn't mean literal goo-goo gaga. No, it's about a specific tone. It's condescending, it's scolding, it's correcting. And here's the crucial part of the theory. It claims this way of talking gets triggered when they see the other person as having low social status. They're essentially treating them like a helpless or incompetent kid. So this leads to what the theory presents as a very binary two-track way of interacting. According to the source, how a woman responds is all about her perception of your status. If you're a high-status person, say her boss or a guy she finds attractive, you get respect. But if you're seen as low status, you allegedly get treated like a bad baby, and you get hit with that condescending baby talk.
So, you might be asking, where does this perception of status even come from? The source points its finger directly at the media and the broader culture. This quote from the source is pretty direct about it. It claims this demographic has been sort of emotionally programmed to see white men as uniquely misguided and therefore low status, which in the theory's logic is what flips the baby talk switch.
And this whole framework of baby talk and status isn't just about arguments with a significant other. The source expands this idea to explain much bigger conflicts, everything from dating to the entire political landscape. The source even lays out this four-step process it calls a distortion cycle. Here's how it goes. A man voices his concerns about, say, the economy or immigration. Step 2, the woman, according to this model, filters that through her feelings, ignores the nuance, and then, step 3, she zeroes in on one part and reframes it as a moral failing, like, oh, so why are you so racist? When he pushes back, she allegedly insists that his experience is the actual problem.
The bigger takeaway here, as the source presents it, is a total breakdown of any kind of productive conversation. Political debate stops being about ideas and becomes this emotional, zero-sum game. Logic doesn't work anymore, and one group basically gets turned into a socially acceptable punching bag that can't even talk about their own experiences without getting attacked.
So after laying all that out, what's the solution? The source doesn't just diagnose the problem. It actually proposes two very different strategies for men to deal with these kinds of conflicts.
The two options are laid out like a strategic choice. The first one is to just become high status. Be the boss, be an expert, be someone she's attracted to. The theory goes that if you can pull that off, she'll just naturally adopt your opinions. But the source admits that's pretty hard for most guys. So the second option, which it actually calls the most effective choice, is to play their game. Basically, to drop logic and use the same emotional rules right back at her.
In this quote, wow, it really just puts that second strategy in the plainest terms possible. The advice is explicit. Stop trying to have a logical debate. It argues that if the other person is only running on feelings, then the only thing that works is to meet them on that level, using emotion and, even manipulation as your tool.
So what's the end game with this tactic? According to the source, the whole point is to flip the script of something called the drama triangle. That social model with a victim, a persecutor, and a rescuer. The strategy is to claim that your own lived experience has been hurt by her words, which then casts her as the bad guy, the persecutor, and lets you seize control of the emotional high ground.
So there you have it. We've just walked through a theory that frames a lot of our modern social conflict not as a simple disagreement, but as a deep, instinct-driven breakdown. It really paints a picture of a world where logic is constantly at war with what it calls misapplied feelings. So we'll leave you with this to think about. What does the existence of a model like this suggest about the role of feelings versus logic in our disagreements today?